Hello film lovers, welcome back to my channel. I'm really excited to share with you today the very first video in my series for my top 25 favorite movies of all time. So I want to say up front, this is my personal top 25 favorite films. I am not declaring these to be the greatest movies of all time universally. These are just my personal favorite top 25 films. And I'm very happy to share them with you. This is gonna be a three-part video series. So this video is the first of three, and the way it's gonna go down is this. This video is gonna cover my top 25 favorite films from the 1920s to the 1960s. In the second video, we're gonna cover my top 25 favorite films that fall between the 70s and the 80s. And in the third and final part of this series, we're gonna cover my favorite films from the 90s up to current day. So this is part one, let's do this. Okay, so the first film, The Kid, 1921 film, directed by Charlie Chaplin, starring Charles Chaplin and Jackie Coogan. This is an incredible, incredible movie. This is Charlie Chaplin's first feature film. It's from 1921, and this is the Criterion Collection release of the movie. And this movie is absolutely just a wonderfully charming film starring Charlie Chaplin playing the tramp. He takes care of this orphan, played by Jackie Coogan, and this movie just beautifully portrays their relationship, and it's just a very charming, beautiful story from the silent era. All right, so the second film is a film by one of my favorite directors, Sir Alfred Hitchcock, and this is in his early days from 1934. It's The Man Who Knew Too Much. So this is a Criterion Collection release from 1934, and this film is incredible. It's about a couple vacationing in Switzerland, and their daughter gets kidnapped by Peter Lorre and his band of evildoers. But it's just really early, wonderful early Hitchcock, just incredibly charming, thrilling the way he filmed this movie. I think you'll really enjoy it. All right, so the next movie in this series is Bicycle Thieves. And part of the reason why this film is on my list is because of the heartfelt story that it portrays. It's about a poor family in Italy. This movie is from 1948, and basically this poor family is just barely getting by. This father of this family gets a new job and an opportunity to bring income in for his family and take care of them. And his bicycle is stolen. His mode of transportation is stolen. And so this movie is about this father and son and their quest to retrieve the bike that was stolen. Just seeing the desperation of these people is just heartbreaking. It really makes you think about how blessed we are to live in this country and how blessed we are to have the things that we have. When you see people living in the conditions that this family's living in, it definitely gives you some perspective. So this is definitely a touching film, and I was just floored when I saw it, Bicycle Thieves. So the next film is a film that is definitely on the lighter side of things and really lifts your spirits every time you see it. It's Singin In The Rain, the 1952 film starring Gene Kelly, Donald O'Connor, and Debbie Reynolds. And this film, in my mind, one of the best musicals that Hollywood's ever produced. It's probably, arguably, the best musical ever. But part of the reason why this movie is among my favorites of all time is for the simple fact that I love movies that show the process of making movies, that show the art of making movies. And this movie does that better than any movie I've ever seen. And there's a lot of movies that do that, but this movie actually portrays aspects of filmmaking in a way that's really compelling. So I love Singin In The Rain, plus the dancing and the music numbers are legendary. So Singin In The Rain. All right, so this next film is part of a three-part series that is featured by the Criterion Collection. The director is Indian director Satyajit Ray, and the film that I'm referring to is the first in this series. It's called Panther Panchali. It's part of the Apu trilogy from the 1950s. Panther Panchali came out in 1955 and is an incredibly touching story of this young boy growing up in a very poor family in Bengal, India. And this entire series, the Apu trilogy, follows the story of Apu. and the trials and tribulations that he goes throughout his journey. But once you see Panther Panchali, you will never forget it. The one thing I'll say, without spoiling anything of course, is there's a scene between Apu's mother and his sister Durga that will literally bring tears to your eyes. It is absolutely devastating. And when you see it, you know what I'm talking about. But this is an incredible movie as part of an incredible series, Panther Panchali. The other films are Aparajito and Apur Sansar. It follows Apu's life as he grows and matures into a young man, so I highly recommend it. All right, so now we're in the 1960s, and this is a film that is very near and dear to my heart. It is truly, in my mind, one of the top films that has ever been made. I said at the top that this is a video about my personal favorite films. I'm not claiming these films to be the greatest ever. Well, in this case, this film is, in my opinion, one of the greatest films that has ever been made. It is unlike any other. This is another film by Sir Alfred Hitchcock, and it is Psycho. Now, this is a box set that has Psycho in it, along with several other essentials from Hitchcock, including Rear Window, Vertigo, North by Northwest, and The Birds. But I'm talking about Psycho here in this particular video here as being one of my all-time favorite films. It is an absolute masterpiece of filmmaking, editing, writing, scripting, pacing, directing. It is the total package. When you think about Anthony Perkins' character, Janet Leigh's character, Bates Motel, just the portrayal of all the events and the way the film is paced. Just the shower scene itself at Bates Motel has been studied by film schools for many years. It's been studied shot for shot in the way it was edited, more than probably any scene in film history. The characters in the film are amazing, the pacing is amazing, the directing is amazing. Yeah, Psycho is definitely one of those films that once you see it, it definitely stays with you. Part of the reason why Alfred Hitchcock is considered to be one of the greatest directors of all time, the all-time master of suspense. Psycho, 1960. All right, so last but not least, in this first video, I'm gonna cover a film from 1969. It was actually covered in a full review that I did recently, and that is the 1969 film Medium Cool, directed by Haskell Wexler and starring Robert Forster and Verna Bloom. This film from 1969 is truly a landmark in documentary cinema verite cinema. This film covers the events in Chicago in 1968 during the Democratic National Convention and the events surrounding it. And the characters are so beautifully realized between Robert Forster's character and Verna Bloom's character, Harold Blankenship, the son. It's just an absolutely amazing film. You have to see it to believe it. Medium Cool. All right, so there you have it. This was the first of 3 videos covering my top 25 favorite films, the ones that were released between 1920 and 1969. So these are those right here. This is cinematic glory and goodness in the palm of my hand. If you watch these films, I guarantee you'll be touched. But let me know what you guys think. Let me know what are your favorite films from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. What films do you like from that era? In the second video, I'm gonna get into the top 25 favorite films on my list that are from the 70s and 80s. So look for that video soon. But want to hear your comments, want to hear what your favorite films are, want to hear if you've seen any of these movies, what do you think of them? What are some films that are on your favorite list that I haven't covered? So look for the next video in this series, and we'll see you at the movies.